It was a Friday night. My parents had decided they wanted to go on a date, but instead of leaving me with a babysitter like they always did, they just let me stay home alone. "You're old enough," my mother said, "you can take care of yourself alone." But of course, they needed to give me the rules. No opening the door for anyone, no horror movies, and go to bed at 9 p.m. sharp. I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies back then because I would get really bad nightmares. Once my parents left, I watched TV until 9 and then went into my room reading a book using the light from my nightlight. Before I continue, let me set the scene for you. When you first enter my room, you see that to the right was my bed and at the very foot of my bed was a closet. So, if I were to sit up just a little from a back sleeping position, if the closet was open, I could see right in. At that time, I wasn't that afraid of leaving my closet open, so it was open tonight. After about 30 minutes, I closed my book, turned off my nightlight, and laid down. I was asleep for about an hour when I heard something moving around my room, specifically near the closet. I assumed it was just my parents returning from their date and checking on me, so I went right back to bed. Then, 10 minutes later, I hear the sound again, louder and closer this time. So, being the stupid kid I was and assuming it was just our cat, I sat up slightly to look into the closet. And lo and behold, there was someone or something just inches inside the closet, staring at me. I couldn't make out any details, but the eyes were unforgettable. There were a pair of dim, white eyes. They had this gentle glow to them, and they swayed a bit as though they were just floating. I didn't know what to do, so I just stared. Whatever it was continued staring right back at me. Then, after a moment, the eyes moved deeper into my closet, and just like that, they were gone. I can't really explain what it was in my closet, but it definitely wasn't a cat. As a kid, I grew up in a very haunted house. I was raised by my grandparents in a house with my brother, two cousins, three uncles, and four aunts. Basically a big family. Our house was 6 bedrooms plus one of the older kids had a bedroom in our unfinished basement. We will get into the basement later. The energy in our house is light, and we have many spirits that are attached to either us or the house who are very friendly. We always got spooked by seeing them. A lot of us were sensitive, spiritually. Even though we knew they were friendly and didn't mean to scare us, they just knew we could see them and were fascinated by that. I have no doubt these spirits were good. Some of my aunt's deceased friends, they lived in the house till their late 20s, so they had many friends that had been at the house at some point, would be seen around the house. I have seen many spirits in our house, all friendly. For example, the spirit everyone has seen is a little girl in a white dress in the hallway at the front of the house, usually with a little white dog. Now for the basement. Our laundry room was in the basement, and in our house, my grandma did the laundry, and we didn't have individual laundry baskets in our rooms. There was a laundry chute that went straight to the laundry basket in the laundry room part of the basement. When one of us goes downstairs, you don't ever walk back up those stairs. You run. Anytime we went downstairs, it felt like there was always someone following us. So that's why the oldest, also usually misbehaved kid would get the basement as a bedroom. However, it was a choice, and if you would rather share a room upstairs, that was a choice too. We would always see family members walk into rooms or through hallways, but when we went to talk to them, they would be on the complete other side of the house, and their location would make it impossible for who or what we saw to have been them. Like, for example, the basement stairs are on one half of the house. The two halves of the house were connected by just the enclosed kitchen, and I saw my grandpa go into his bedroom on the other side. I was right outside his door by my room when I saw him go in, so I went in after him to ask him a question. No one was in there. I asked my grandma where he was, and she said he was in his office in the basement doing bills. Also, my grandpa was an evil and abusive man, which I won't be talking about here, but the basement never bothered him for. I believe that reason. I have heard of flesh pedestrians and mimics recently, and that sounds like what went on then. But aren't flesh pedestrians and mimics evil? Whatever that was we would see never felt evil, and the energy was good, like it was our friendly child spirits playing around. Any thoughts? My father, 70-year-old male, is from a small town in Italy with 3,000 people. The town has become smaller in population over the years, with only the elderly and the most stubborn of people left. My father's house has a lot of history. It was built in the late 1800s, and my family has always lived in it since the house was built. Many people have died in the house, and even on my trip in 2013, I slept in a bed where people died in their sleep. I did not know this till years later. A few years ago, my father went to Italy for a holiday. My father is a hardcore atheist. No God, no ghosts, no nothing. I myself am religious, but he makes fun of me for my beliefs. However, he still respects the beliefs I have. My father was raised in poverty just after WWE, so he learned to be extremely cheap in life. He has visited his home in Italy at least a dozen times with nothing weird happening. This all changed on his trip in 2017. He had invited a guest to live with him since he said this would save his friend money while visiting Italy. The first few weeks seemed very normal. This, however, soon changed. One day, a family friend came to visit my dad. They were cooking pasta, yes, very Italian of them, and the friend who was living with my father was folding clothes. My father and the family friend noticed this person looked like they were in a trance, as if they were thinking of something very important while folding the clothes. Then, this friend just walked off into another room, not saying a word. This was very odd, since this person always seemed to be very extroverted and was extremely chatty just minutes before. Regardless of this, my father just brushed it off. A few days later, the family friend came to visit my dad again. While the man was leaving down the stairs, he slipped and almost fell. This was odd because, for the staircase, each stair had a sort of groove to it that made it fairly hard to slip off the way the man did. Obviously, they just assumed he slipped on his own. The very next day, the man who was living with my father was again acting very cold, as if he was thinking about something intensely. My father decided to ask his friend what was going on. His friend simply said he felt a dark presence in the house. My dad knew this man really well and took this comment very seriously. However, he was really against the belief that paranormal entities exist. But what he saw on the staircase forever changed his belief. A few days go by and my father is alone in the house at night. He has outdated lighting. The house just has a little bulb in the kitchen to light it up and a few dimly lit lights in the bedrooms. The stairway where his friend slipped that leads to the road had no lights. The only light source for someone to use to walk downstairs is from the little light that comes from the upstairs kitchen that hits the stairs. My father had to use these stairs to go outside, and what he saw scars him to this day. By this time, the friend living with my father had left the house to go back to his home country. In the evening, my father was standing near the top of the stairs, and at the bottom, next to an old chair, was a black figure. He described it as a black figure made of smoke that was shaped like a human, but as if they flowed like water. He also mentioned that the smell was terrible, similar to the smell of rotting eggs, but unique enough to say with certainty he has never smelled it before. Anyways, my father's just standing there, shocked at what he thinks he sees. It is very dark, so he partly thought he was imagining this. All of a sudden, the figure goes up the stairs, and my father describes the figure as a human, but when you try to look at the face, no matter how hard you look, you cannot see it. My father's heart was beating like crazy, and he thought he was going to have a stroke. He claimed that he was unable to move and thought the figure was controlling him. Eventually, his mind is clear again, and he is able to think more rationally, and by this time, the figure soon dissipates into the darkness. My father did not know if what happened really happened to him. He did sleep in the house that night, however. He felt uneasy and decided to sleep in a bed and breakfast for the rest of his trip. Now, remember, he is super cheap, so to leave a perfectly good house and pay for a bed and breakfast certainly means he truly believed he saw a ghost. He also got a priest to bless his house. He was a hardcore atheist, so to pay money and waste time to get a priest to bless the house only supports my belief that my father is not making this up. My father returned to his house a few years later and said nothing weird happened anymore, except he heard doors slamming upstairs, but said the drafts from the windows is the likely culprit.